fans of World Championship automobile racing. Formula One competition on one of the fastest courses upon which these cars run. And some 100,000 French race fans are hoping that one of their cars can again prevail in the French Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Dijon, France, where it's race number 8 for the World Championship of automobile racing. Formula One cars in competition here today. I'm Ken Squire, and working with me, one of the most respected drivers in the game, and right now very much involved in the scramble of the International Motorsports Association, David Hobbs.
Thank you, Ken. Well, one of the funny things about Formula One racing is that almost every season some local hero manages to steal the limelight. And France awoke ecstatic this morning as on the pole is a French driver in a French car. Young René Arnoux, 33 yesterday, pole position, driving a turbocharged Renault. 2 years ago when you saw this race on CBS, there was also a Renault on the pole, turbocharged, driven by Jabouille, who went on to win the race. Yesterday, Arnoux eclipsed his time by over 2 seconds, and I'm sure that apart from that, he's also hoping the history is going to repeat itself.
Also working with us on our CBS Sports Sunday same-day satellite coverage, Europe's top auto racing commentator, Barry Gill. Your thoughts?
Well, Ken, I agree with David that the whole of France would celebrate if René Arnoux won. I remember 2 years ago when Renault won their first Grand Prix since 1906. French car, French engine, French tyres, and lots of French champagne. But one man could spoil the party today. That's John Watson in the McLaren. John hasn't won a race since 1976, but he's there in the front row in the new car. And we remember that 4 years ago, John was winning this race when he ran out of petrol on the very last lap. How about that for the non-luck of the Irish, Ken?
A very fast track. And David Hobbs, let's take a look at the course right now.
Well, as you can see, it's relatively simple. That's the new section sticking up like the top of a Stetson there, but it's a long uphill straight, and this is going to favour the turbocharged cars. However, those corners are all fairly high speed. The circuit undulates a lot, so the really well-handling cars like the Brabham and the Williams are also going to do well here.
We'll be back with the start here at Dijon, France, of the French Grand Prix after these messages. On the pole position as the field rolls out in the preliminary lap, Renault. They were here in 1979 with Jean-Pierre now retired. And for the 7th time in his career, René Arnoux, driving for Team Renault, finds himself on the pole for this, the most important race for him, the French Grand Prix. On the outside of the front row is John Watson, who has been in the doldrums now for the last couple of years, but with a new carbon fiber MP4 McLaren, he is outside of the front row, and McLaren looks stout for today's race. Then starting in the 3rd position is Alain Prost, who moves on to this team from Renault, replacing Jean-Pierre Jabouille.
And of course his move actually caused a bit of controversy because McLaren had signed him up as a very up-and-coming young Formula 3 driver. He won the Formula 3 race at Monte Carlo 2 years ago, which is the main thing in a race driver's life. And of course he went to McLaren, and then he got moved on to Renault, and McLaren were very upset.
Beside him is Nelson Piquet, who has won 2 races this year, on the outside of the 2nd row. And here are the point standings as we go into today's battle. As you see, Carlos Reutemann, victorious in Belgium and Brazil, has the advantage over Alan Jones, who you saw win the Long Beach Grand Prix. Then Piquet in 3rd. And the big story, Gilles Villeneuve of Montreal has moved up in the points with back-to-back wins at Monaco and Italy. He may be in for 3 in a row. The Ferrari is certainly one of the most powerful cars here, David, but aerodynamically it's having some trouble with this very fast 2.36-mile track.
Yes, it's a bit unusual he should win at the 2 tight tracks of Madrid in Spain and Monte Carlo, because they're very, very tight, and it just shows how well the Ferrari engine's working.
Setting the rows, Arnoux and Watson in row 1, row 2, Prost and Piquet, De Cesaris and Lafitte in row 3, row 4, Reutemann and De Angelis. In row 5 is Alan Jones and Mario Andretti. Row 6, Villeneuve and Giacomelli. Row 7, Mansell and Peroni. 8th is Rabach Tambay. The 9th row is Rosberg Patrese. In row 10 is Eddie Cheever and Derek Daly. In the 11th row is Mark Schurer, who has swapped cars for today's race, driving the Theodore and Salazar. And in row 12, Alberto and Chico Serra. Field coming back online, and we are just about set for our same-day coverage of the French Grand Prix. Waiting for the light to change. 80 laps, 189 miles. 6 cars broke the record in qualifying for today's race. Start, John Watson says, will be the most important, the first 800 feet into that first turn. Everyone online. All cars set. On the brake. Arnoux in trouble. He's dropping way back. And they go 3-4 deep. Arnoux had trouble coming off the line.
What a terrible start. The starter couldn't find the button to the lights, and it obviously confused poor old René Arnoux on the pole. And his teammate didn't do much better and nearly pushed Piquet off the road at the start, but they seem to have got through that first corner okay as they whistled through those very fast S's and down to the sharp left-hander, which is all part of the new circuit.
Nelson Piquet has taken the lead. Nelson Piquet looking for his third Grand Prix win of the season for Brabham. Sneaks out in front. Piquet making an excellent start. He was back in the second row, the fourth starting position. Watson is in second, and De Cesaris has moved into third position.
So the two Works McLarens are up there in second and third, and there's the first of the Renault, which looks like René Arnoux himself. Back there in about 8th place is the other factory Renault. Now, of course, these turbocharged cars do have a job getting off the line, and that's one of the worst jobs I've ever seen them make of that particular start.
They were fortunate someone didn't run over someone on that starting line.
Absolute miracle, and it's very miraculous that Piquet managed to get into the front. He really nearly got eased out completely by Alain Prost in the second one of those turbo Renaults.
Arnoux is making a move to pick up ground, coming around, completing lap number 1. Watson still in second, and Prost has been passed. Moving up is Arnoux. He's into third.
There we saw a clear demonstration of the tremendously awesome power of these turbocharged Renaults. He passed De Cesaris like he was tied to the ground on the straight and is now really hauling in John Watson in second place. This is where I'd have expected the turbo cars to do well, while the tanks are full and they've got a lot of fuel and a lot of horsepower.
Nelson Piquet at the moment in front. Piquet with 5 Grand Prix wins to his credit. Holds into the lead. He stays up in front as they go through that parabolic turn.
Up to the slowest corner, that left-hander. Look at the ground that René Arnoux has made on John Watson there.
Watson holding on to second place, hoping for his second Grand Prix victory. His only Grand Prix victory was with an American car when he drove for Roger Penske and won in Austria in 1976. Around to complete the second of 80 laps. Down to the scoring line. Nelson Piquet is first. John Watson is second. Arnoux right behind him in third.
Look at Arnoux there, pulling out to pass Watson.
Meanwhile, flashing by, moving up into fifth, comes the Ferrari Villeneuve with that turbo-powered car. That 6-cylinder. He's beginning to make his weight felt and getting into a scoring position here in this French Grand Prix.
Okay, before we go any further in this race, I want you to know that that is not René Arnoux that's in second place now. It is Alain Prost in car number 15. René Arnoux is still struggling back after that dreadful start. He's back in 8th position. So there we see Alain Prost, the new find of Renault, in fact the find of McLaren, now just past his old teammate John Watson, last year's teammate, and now hot on the heels of Nelson Piquet in that Brabham.
So Prost is in second, Watson third, and there's the story moving in. Villeneuve continues to charge. Villeneuve now taking 4th place as he works his way through the field. We'll be back with more in a moment. Now has come around the track and is in still another time, changing the left front tire.
Well, he changed the track rod first time, then he's changed the tires twice, so he's obviously got some derangement on the chassis, I'm sure, which is upsetting his tires.
Piquet stays in front. Let's go to Barry Gill.
Well, this is very unusual indeed. The Sadia Leyland Williams team have gone 16 Grand Prix with the car into points. Alan Jones, of course, Mr. Reliability, but not this race. 3 visits to the pits, twice for tyres. Ken and David, we better watch out for more tyre problems back on the track, and particularly, perhaps, with Carlos Reutemann.
Reutemann set a record with 15 performances in the points in Grand Prix racing. Still trying to live out the hopes of Argentina to be their second world champion, Fangio their first. Fangio did it in about 3 years, from 1948. He started, began to score points shortly thereafter as he came into the 50s. But for Carlos Reutemann, it was 72 when he saw his first Grand Prix Formula One race. And as we come into 81, he is still looking for that world title first time around. Reutemann leading well over Alan Jones, and this race could really tell the story.
I'd like to see Reutemann win the championship because he's done so well for such a long period of time. But he's now being pressed very hard by the pole sitter, René Arnoux, who's very close behind Reutemann, who was gesticulating in his pits earlier on. Looked like he was going to come in for a tyre stop. did not, carried on out there, but he has definitely dropped off the pace. There's more daylight between he and John Watson, and as I say, René Arnoux has made up a lot of ground and is now right behind Carlos Reutemann in car number 2.
Nelson Piquet having to do with some lap traffic as he moves back across the line. They go 3 wide, and getting shut off is Piquet. He had no place to go. Bruno Giacomelli is down on the inside, and that's Patrick Tambay, I believe.
Well, Tambay was drafting Giacomelli. Obviously, he was watching Giacomelli, who was only about 6 inches in front of him, pulled out of the draft to do the slingshot, which viewers are so familiar with NASCAR racing. And meanwhile, Piquet was right behind him. And there we see Piquet suddenly getting squeezed out to the left, decides to take advantage of the draft of Tambay, tries to come down the middle of the gap there, but there ain't no gap left, boy.
One of the major stories last year were the skirts on the cars. They wanted to slow the machines down. And so they went through a set of new rules and regulations and decided all cars should be 6 centimeters off the ground. It's now called the 6 silly little centimeter rule, as Barry Gill found out.
It's 5 months since the Grand Prix world was at war. The team bosses versus the sports governing body. And the main cause of contention, the ground clearance cars. Cars with a skirting round here that sucked air underneath, which in turn sucked the car to the ground and gave enormous cornering speeds. Do you remember all those brave words about slowing the sport, making it safer? Well, the result was one major new rule, that each car had to have a ground clearance of approximately 3 inches, just as you see here. The snag is that although all the cars have that clearance when they're in the pits, the moment the driver hits the track, thanks to a unique hydropneumatic suspension, all he has to do is turn a little switch here, and the car just sinks down to the system exactly as before. It is, in fact, pure Formula One farce. It's a fact nowadays that the only law in Grand Prix racing is the loophole. But the governing body should have remembered that in motor racing of all sports, you cannot uninvent speed.
Well, that may be the case, but one of the side effects of this lowering of the cars is to produce this sort of bumping that you can see these cars going down the straight as they're now dragging themselves along the floor.
Nelson Piquet, after win number 6, stays in front still another lap. Alain Prost is still in second, and Watson, with that new McLaren, is in 3rd place here in the French Grand Prix. And we'll be back with more of the excitement of this great racing classic in a moment. This was supposed to be the day for the turbocharged cars, the Ferraris and the Renaults, but right now, after that flawed start, their hopes for the 1.5-liter set rest with one of the younger drivers, 25-year-old Alain Prost, who first came to attention back in 1979 when he won the Monaco Formula 3 race, and a lot of people then said he would be the one to watch. Right now, they're watching him in 2nd place. Dijon is famous for mustard and wine. And earlier, we had a chance to get away from the track and take a look at one of these great items. Since antiquity, this has been wine country.
And there's another young Frenchman that cares, Alain Prost, in number 15, running a close second behind Nelson Piquet.
Reports of sprinkles around the track. We have a report from Barry Gill. There may be some showers down on pit road. Let's go to Barry.
Well, there's drama here, and you can see why. Look at that great big black cloud behind me, and look at the rain at the moment just starting to come down. The Belgian Grand Prix earlier this season was stopped when it started to rain. These cars are, of course, on slick, dry tyres at the moment, and the rule is quite simple. If the race has run 2/3 distance, that's just over 60 laps, then if it rains, they can stop it to save all the danger of the cars sliding about on the track and coming into the pits all at once for tyre changes. So the most anxious eyes now are not on the track, but at this cloud above me and the rain. And in the pits now, they're already getting the wet weather tyres out, just in case.
Alan Jones running 2 laps down, trying to get himself back a lap here to go around the leader, Nelson Piquet, who is seeking the 26th win for Brabham. Of course, he won in Italy. And that would be his 3rd win of the season if Piquet can keep this car running to the final laps. Let's go to the pits with Barry Gill.
Cesaris in the pits for a left rear tyre change, but note he's putting a slick tyre on, a dry weather tyre, not a wet weather tyre. The Cesaris, who's done really well here, had the best ever grid position, the youngest man in the race, but he's got problems, and from the way they're fighting to get that tyre off, it looks as if the McLaren's normal efficiency is not working today. Back to you, Ken, as the rain really starts to come down now in huge drops. Absolutely. absolutely throwing it down now. A sudden stall. You've got the lap count, Ken. I wouldn't expect much more of this race to take place.
A frog swallow
is in the safe place.
Rooster tails beginning to come off the cars now as they come down the main straightaway.
Now this is the most dangerous part of this race. The track is covered in oil and rubber, freshly put down, and this rain on there, this is like driving down the Long Island Expressway in one of those brief showers. The road is now super slippery. We've got to look out for someone to go sliding off the road at this stage.
And remember, there's no tread on those tires. They're using the slicks right now. That part of the course seems a little drier than it is here on the main straightaway, David.
And as soon as they hit any water that has any depth at all, they just float off on those slicks. I mean, there is no grip at all in the rain.
Well, Nelson Piquet, of course, praying that right now they'll drop a checkered flag as we get up to 58 laps complete. 60 would make it complete. If there are problems.
It's pretty dry just there. They're going to find it when they come around the worst part of the track. The very fastest right-hand corner that leads onto the straight is the bit that's going to be wet.
Red flag is coming out. We understand the red flag is coming out. Let's go to Barry Gill.
Flag is out. The race is being stopped. And Nelson Piquet is going to win this rain-shortened race at Dijon because it's simply too dangerous, David, to carry on.
About a spray coming up over the hill just shows you how wet it's suddenly become here at Dijon. That is, in fact, John Watson in the McLaren, currently lying in third spot and could, in fact, come third in this race.
Although they're bringing out the champagne and the trophies and gathering around Victory Lane, we're now getting a report this race is going to be restarted. Now, the last time that happened was back in 1978. We thought they were bringing out the checkered flag, and so did most of the officials, but that is not the case. This race is going to be restarted.
I wonder if they're going to restart it in the rain, because if they do, everybody's going to have to make a wholesale change to wets, and I can see no reason why they couldn't have just done that on a normal pit stop situation.
Well, we'll be joining you later for the final 22 laps of this World Championship race. Right now, let's go to the CBS Sports desk in New York, and Brent Musburger. We'll see you a bit later.
Seem to know what's going on is Bernard Eccleston, who is not only the president of FOCA, the team organisation, but of course the Brabham team boss, whose car was lying #1 when the red flag went out. Bernie, first of all, what were your feelings then?
Well, I wish it had started around a couple of laps later, because it's 60 laps, they stopped the race altogether, you know?
Now, this is because the old rule used to be 2/3 distance. When did it change, Bernie?
Oh, about a year ago.
Because the drivers were, to say the least, caught by surprise.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's like one of these rules that get put in, and people should know, they should read them, they don't. You know?
We did try and have a word with your driver, Nelson Piquet. He was not in a conversational mood.
He's confused at the moment, or was confused. I mean, in fairness, he thought he'd won the race, and all of a sudden he hasn't won, and he's got to race all over again.
This happened once before, 1978, Ronnie Peterson, but it was way early in the race that day when Peterson won in Austria. Since 1950, there have been 350 World Championship races, but none like this. You are watching a restart, and it will be an aggregate score they have to work against. We're really running this race in two heats, David. We're watching the first of a couple of preliminary laps, and they'll come back around, regrid the cars, and take off. And right now, the leader in this race, Nelson Piquet, has to win by better than 7 seconds. If the second-place car can bite into that at all, he would be declared the winner. The second would become first.
Yeah, it's all terribly confusing, but it is got to be taken now as a two-heat race. The only thing is this second heat is going to be tremendously exciting because it's only 22 laps. So it's going to be a real knockdown, drag-out affair. And some of the cars we hear are starting on what would normally be termed as qualifying tyres. They can probably take that risk because A, it's only 23 laps or 22 laps, and B, the track is still damp. But the sun's come out, the temperature's shot up 20 degrees over the last 25 minutes, and anybody starting on qualifying tyres could be sticking their neck out.
John Watson is one of those who's gone with a qualifying tire. They can go away in a hurry. Now, these are preliminary, non-counting laps. After 2 of these, they will bring the cars back to the grid, and away we'll go in a 22-lap sprint. We have a 2-segment World Championship Formula One race for the first time.
Yes, and let's hope the second start is considerably better than the first start, which didn't work out well at all. There was a mix-up with the lights. Some people started, some didn't, and the result was a tremendously confused start where René Arnoux dropped back from pole to like 12th position.
You see, it's still pretty wet out there as you look at Nelson Piquet, who has the advantage, entirely frustrated. how can he feel right now? Have you ever been in a position like this, David?
I haven't, but I was just saying the old Pavlo dog syndrome takes over. When I hear the siren and the 5-minute board goes out, even my heart starts beating. For a Formula One race, the tension build-up is tremendous, and to have to do that twice in the same day is going to be very hard on these drivers. And Piquet, as I say, is a fairly nervous disposition. He drives very, very fast and very well, but I don't think for a minute he wants to go through it again today. I think he'd have been very happy to leave it like it was.
You think of drivers like Graham Hill, who in the past said in that last hour prior to a start, give me my time, just leave me alone. I'll be glad to talk with you before or after, but that has to be my time to focus on what I have to do. And here, it's all been broken down by the shower and the resultant restart. Two-segment Grand Prix race.
Even then, of course, they sort of did it a bit wrong, in my opinion. They've made too much of a gap. They've did an hour's gap between the finish of the one heat and the start of the other. They should have just turned around and gone boom, boom, started off straight away before everybody had a chance to wind down.
19 cars will come back to the grid of the 24 that started. Those that are still not here are Salazar, Rosberg, Tambay, Villeneuve, and Serra. You're looking at Prost, the driver, who is currently in second place. Remember that he is about 7 seconds back. If he can make up any of that, he would be declared the winner. That is,
well, he has to beat Piquet by over 7 seconds.
7.7, I believe.
Right.
Somewhere in that margin. Here they are coming to the line. And they will slow them down, bring them into position, and notice how wet that straightaway still is. And those cars are on slick tires. Remember that Prost has never won a Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet, number 5, is seeking his 6th career win as he comes back to the line, and we prepare for the start once again. Piquet, the 28-year-old from Brazil, on the pole. 22 laps from here, we will decide this French Grand Prix. Outside of him, Prost in the 15, the yellow car, then John Watson lying 3rd, Carlos Reutemann maintaining 4th. Light ready to go. They're away. And in this start, it is Watson trying to make the move. 3 and 4 deep, well back. But jumping out in front, guess who?
And Alain Prost takes the lead, and John Watson slips in behind him, and behind him is the other turbo Renault of René Arnoux, and that could spell disaster for Nelson Piquet, because at this stage of the game, René Arnoux may be used as a block.
Piquet back to about 5th on that start, and the French are back in front in the French Grand Prix with John Watson maintaining 2nd place.
This lap will be extremely slippery. Although there's only 22-lap race, they will be exercising a great deal of caution, because there's no point in flying off the road on this opening lap. But it's going to be difficult because it is slippery, and Watson's having a go at Alain Prost, and he goes up the inside and outbrakes him easily into that tight left-hand turn.
And coming back, here is Prost back into 1st place.
Well, Watson overdid it, went very wide on the exit and gave Prost the line.
So the battle is for the front in this 2nd segment between Prost again in front, Watson in 2nd. Look at this pass.
There we see John Watson sliding wide there, hits the curb, upsets the car, has to lift off the gas, and Alain Prost takes through on the inside and going into this left-hander, which turns into the quick right-hander onto the straight. Here we are.
It is Prost in 1st, Watson in 2nd, Arnoux comes to 3rd, dropping to 4th is Piquet, in 5th is Reutemann. Didier Pironi is in 6th position. So there's a wholesale change up in front, and the French again lead the French Grand Prix. Renault won here in 1979 with Jean-Pierre Jabouille.
And there we see 3 cars, the 3 tail enders going to that last right-hander at the end of the straight. John Watson now back in full pursuit of Alain Prost, leading this race. Prost has to beat Nelson Piquet by only just over 7 seconds, and at the moment he's well ahead of 7 seconds ahead.
Prost looking still for that 1st Grand Prix victory.
Prost looking for his 1st Grand Prix victory. John Watson looking for his 1st Grand Prix victory since 1970. And he won the Austrian Grand Prix.
If Renault can stay in front, this would be their 12th team win, their last coming in 1980. And into the pits is coming one of the Ligers. I believe that's Lafitte. Lafitte is pitting and getting out of his car. Jacques Lafitte stepping away from car number 26 on pit road.
Well, that's not a very good day for France there. The 2 Renaults are going very well in 1st and 3rd spot at the moment, but both Ligier cars are now out of the race.
Prost first, Watson second, Arnoux third.
And Nelson fourth is Didier Pironi in the turbocharged Ferrari. Obviously that little break did them no harm at all, and they managed to get some magic working on that car. And Pironi is now in fourth place in front of Nelson Piquet, who, as the lap's unreal, must be getting more and more disgusted with the afternoon's proceedings.
Piquet is now 8 seconds back, and that would give Prost the win. Remember, Piquet had a 7 7/10 second advantage as they started the second segment of this race today after rain. That has evaporated, and right now it is Prost putting on a marvelous performance for the French team Renault with this 6-cylinder 90-degree turbo, and he has the advantage by enough to win the race overall. More in a moment. Coming around in lap number 72, and the lead car continues to be the Renault. Alain Prost is in front, and just clearing around 2 lap cars is John Watson, and Watson is definitely closing ground as they sweep around that hard double right-hander coming toward the line. The story begins to change, and Watson seems to be reeling in the leader.
Well, he was reeling in the leader. Then he had a tremendous bit of bad luck in as much as Alain Prost caught those 2 lapped cars at the beginning of the straight, whistled by them. Poor old John Watson caught him up at the end of the straight and effectively had to do half a lap behind them before finally getting rid of them. And all the hard work he'd put in over the last 5 laps suddenly went away.
Saw Arnoux, number 16, running third. And here is Watson with a clean shot at the leader now, trying to make up time in this new McLaren, the MP4. Teddy Mayer ecstatic about the car. Aerodynamically, it works as well as anything here at Dijon, France, for this running of the French Grand Prix, and it's now trying to close some ground. And this, the second segment of this World Championship race, first time that has come about.
Well, of course, the Berg that's going to be feeling so sick. There we see John Watson.
There is John Watson, winner of 1 Grand Prix, 1976 Austria, that for Roger Penske. The last 2 years have been hard on him and hard on McLaren, but things seem to be righting themselves as they look forward to going home to the British Grand Prix in 2 weeks, and CBS will be there.
There we see Hector Ibarca and Eddie Cheever. Eddie Cheever number 3 in the Tyrrell car. Eddie Cheever, of course, the young American driver, the only other American driver in this race apart from Mario Andretti. The guy who's feeling sickest, of course, at the moment is Nelson Piquet, running 5th. Road in this heat, which makes him about 3rd overall on the day's aggregate scoring.
Prost trying to keep a victory from the team for which he drove 1 year ago. Drove for McLaren, broke his hand last year in competition, missed some races, but had himself a 6th place finish in the course of a hard year on the McLaren team. And here is Alain Prost staying in front, but his lead diminishing. There is Prost, his lead diminishing as John Watson continues to move up, crowd by inches into those corners. They're both on qualifying tires. The interesting thing is that the Reutemann car, the Goodyear cars that were here for this race, did not really have a qualifying tire, and these cars shod on Michelin rubber now are really running well, and that has really changed the complexion of this race around after the restart.
Well, that's one thing that changed it. The other thing that changed it was Reutemann, who had been running in 4th spot all through the first 58 laps, had a coming together with Jacques Lafitte. We saw Jacques Lafitte retire, putting both of those Ligier cars out, and it's obviously knocked old Reutemann's car around somewhat, and he is languishing back in about 10th spot at the moment.
Watson continues to pick up time on the leader, Prost. John Watson. And there you see the interval exactly between those 2 cars. There is the Renault leading the event. Renault winning here 2 years ago. What a day that was. Largest crowd in French Grand Prix history. Out to congratulate Jean-Pierre Jabouille. Prost would like to be in the same position. But Watson continues to gather up milliseconds here as he comes along. You saw Reutemann there, still back in that 10th position after his meeting with Jacques Lafitte that put Lafitte on the wayside.
It's an amazing thing how Grand Prix racing does bring out these days. It's I'll never forget Villeneuve's first Grand Prix win was on his home track in Montreal. What an incredible occasion that was. Jabouille's first Grand Prix win was right here at Dijon in '79, and it looks like Alain Prost's first Grand Prix win could be here in front of a home crowd, with the other Renault being on pole. I mean, what a day. They just couldn't do better. You couldn't write a better script.
Prost now has to lap the number 3 car, which is running in 12th position, Cheever. 2 cars in there, and that's the 33 car, which has been the ride of Patrick Tambay until this race. Now Mark Schura is aboard the Theodore. Whoa, Schura in trouble.
Well, I think he went wide, quite frankly, to let the Renault through.
Nearly too wide.
Yeah, and overdid it just a little bit.
The lead car still is the number 15 of Prost, now trying to move around Eddie Cheever's car and gaining ground. Comes John Watson in the number 7 McLaren. There's Eddie Cheever, who is claimed as the other American in Formula One racing. His father from Phoenix, Arizona, was here for a couple of days of qualifying. Said he would be just as happy sitting home watching it than being here for the pressure. Says it's sure not like Formula 2 racing. And here is Alain Prost moving around Eddie Cheever to put him a lap down. And there you see Watson just coming along, still moving in as we get to the final laps of the French Grand Prix. At the French Grand Prix, Alain Prost had his first year of Formula One racing 1 year ago. Still looking for his first win, is in front as we move into the final 2 laps. A year ago, he was impressive, picking up points 4 times. Had a 5th place in Brazil. Then in South Africa, broke his wrist. But here today, the team he drove for a year ago is in 2nd place, and he, with a 6-cylinder turbo-powered Renault, is out in front, and it looks to be a near insurmountable lead, David Hobbs.
Well, I don't think John Watson can pull it back in 2 laps. There we saw Alain Prost just putting a lap on car number 6. That's Hector Ibarque, the teammate of Nelson Piquet, who led for the first 58 laps here. Alain Prost still trying pretty hard. He put a wheel over the curb there, dropped onto the rough stuff at the edge of the road. Not the sort of thing you want to do if you want to get through the race without having too many punctures.
John Watson 2nd. Arnoux is still 3rd. Didier Pironi lies 4th on the field with the 5th position, Nelson Piquet. He who led for so much of this race until the rains came and the restart.
There we see Alain Prost. This will give him just 1 lap to go. Closely followed by Ibarque. There's John Watson in the background, car number 7 in that brand new McLaren, built of a very exotic material. And this car's showing a lot of form for the rest of the year, I'm sure.
Carlos Reutemann been having engine problems, and that Melody has left him out on the course. He will not come across the man who was number 1 going into this race in the world standings this year. And teammate Alan Jones is faring no better today. Nelson Piquet will pick up a few points. We'll see how many in just 1 lap.
Alain Prost, of course, will pick up 9 points. That'll jump him up the table quite substantially. But Carlos Reutemann will still retain a reasonably healthy lead with 37 points over his teammate Alan Jones with 34.
Prost came into this race tied in 11th with John Watson and Mark Schura. Watson, the man currently in 2nd. Into those final corners. Headed for that big, hard right-hander. Checkered flag in hand directly below us. And France on its way to winning the French Grand Prix. Team Renault has come back to Dijon, and they've done it. Prost has won his first Grand Prix, and a great day for Alan Watson, who will conclude it in 2nd place. There he is, number 7, pulling up behind. But Prost has won his first World Championship event in this very unpredictable French Grand Prix today. Watson 2nd, Piquet is going to be credited with 3rd across the line with that time that he had amassed in the first segment of the race before the rain. Arnoux will be set back to 4th, although he comes across under the flag in 3rd with the time restructured. It'll be Piquet 3rd, Arnoux 4th, Didier Pironi in 5th, and it'll be Ilio De Angelis for Chapman and Lotus, finishing 6th and scoring that last point here in the French Grand Prix.
Of course, those are only provisional results, and we have to wait for the official results to come out, which is going to take some time to compute, because obviously all these aggregate times of the 2 sections of this race have to be put together. But that looks like it. Nelson Piquet in 5th spot, but the winner, Alain Prost, his first Grand Prix win, driving a French turbocharged Renault. And these cars should come good in this second half of the season. You'll be seeing the next Formula One World Championship race from Silverstone, England in 2 weeks, and I expect to see the Ferraris do well there, and of course these Renaults should be on super form on that very fast, they're now the fastest road race course in the world.
Team Renault, in its 54th start, wins its 5th World Championship race. The last time they were victorious was Austria 1980 with Jean-Pierre Jabouille, who won this race back in 1979. He has gone into retirement now, still bothered some by those injuries he sustained in Canada a year ago.
Well, today's results must be very encouraging for Renault, who've got off to a slightly dodgy start this year, but with the 1st and the 4th under their belt, they will go to Silverstone, as I say, very much cheered up. Silverstone should suit the turbocharged cars. That includes, obviously, the 2 Ferraris. On the other hand, the real handling cars, the Williams, the Brabhams, and the new McLaren will probably shine on those very high-speed corners.
As you look at the standings here, notice that Nelson Piquet, in the corrected aggregate time, is put into 3rd place. Arnoux in 4th, Peroni 5th, Elio D'Angelo 6th, Mario Andretti of the United States 8th. But the story is here, up on the victory podium, with Alain Prost winning his 1st World Championship race. A big moment for him and for all of France. And you can see the celebrations really getting underway. Let's join Barry Gill on the victory podium right.
Alain Prost, this is the 2nd time that CBS have congratulated the Frenchman on winning his 1st Grand Prix here at Dijon. How do you feel?
Very well. I don't feel much better because it's my first win, and for me it's fantastic because it's in France. I'm very happy.
The French people, of course, are delighted with your victory. Why was the car so much better in the 2nd race than the 1st?
Because we changed the tires, and in the first race I had a big problem with the gearbox. I had no 4th gear, and for the 2nd start I had my 4th gear, so I was much quicker.
So you must be very pleased about the rain.
No, but yes, I was very lucky because it was raining, and after I had to get the 4th. But I think my car was the quickest today. I think it's good for me, but for all the team, because they did a very good work.
The winner, Alain Prost. The world drivers' standings continue to tighten up. Again, Carlos Reutemann failed to score. And Nelson Piquet has moved 2 points in front of world defending champion Alan Jones as they move next to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and CBS will be there in 2 weeks to bring you satellite same-day coverage. For Barry Gill and David Hobbs at the French Grand Prix, I'm Ken Squire. And after the following commercial messages, CBS Sports Sunday will continue with Brent Musburger in New York.